Welcome to Between the Poles, the podcast where we dive deep into the heart of the pole community. I'm your host, Caroline. Here, it's not just about the tricks and the spin, it's about the stories, the people, and the connection that make our community so special. Every episode, we sit down with pole artists, studio owners, and inspiring members of the community to talk about their journeys, challenges, and passions. So grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's get real. This is Between the Poles. Hi, Roz. Welcome to Between the Poles. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing? Well, I'm about to be better now that I have a cocktail because it's after work. So,
Oh, yeah. I am at the studio right now. I'm going to teach classes, so I'm not having a cocktail, but I am having a nice Starbucks matcha latte, and I will enjoy that. Cheers.
well, cheers.
It does start a nice podcast, a nice.
hmm
I want to go right into it because there's so many topics I want to touch up on with you, and I feel like the listeners, the viewers are going to have like such a good time listening to this episode. Can you just for like a quick background tell us very briefly how you started pole?
Sure. So, I've been a pole dancer since October 2007. So we're over 17 years now. It's been a long time. And I started because they offered pole dancing classes at my gym. And so I just signed up for a class one night to try it out. And I was in love at first sight. I was hooked from the very beginning. I was a hot mess. I wasn't very good at it at all, but it was the most fun failing at the gym I'd ever had. So I'm glad that I stuck with it because now it's my life.
Here you go. I feel people that stick with pole and really enjoy pole, and I will put myself in that basket too. I like failing at pole. Like I really want to move, but I want to challenge. I don't want to have the move the first go. I want to feel like I'm giving it my all, and after like practice and practice of it not working, one random day I'll show up to the studio, and then finally I get that like one move I've been obsessing over, and that makes
hmm
it so much more gratifying. Okay.
Absolutely.
I kind of also wanted to ask you. So you were already doing fitness because you said they offered it at your gym. So
hmm
you're in the gym, you're already doing fitness. There's two kind of guests on this podcast, and you have to tell us in what category have you been or are you still? There's people that kicked the pole and then just really did great from the get-go. They're like, I don't know, I picked it up really easy and like everything happened and I just like skyrocketed. And there's other people just like me that I really struggled from the start and kind of build up on that journey. Do you feel you picked up pole quite easily, or did you really kind of have to put the groundwork in?
I was in the struggle camp for sure. I was a hot ass mess. And still am a hot ass mess. So, you know what? I would put myself in the forever messy category.
Okay.
That's what I would say. That's a new thing I'm just thinking of. But the forever messy category, I think, I know some people naturally gravitate towards pole, but I think everyone in some way or another starts out a hot mess. Because I see pole as a combination of strength training and flexibility and dance. And most people start out with one, maybe two out of the three, but I have yet to meet somebody who starts out having all three of those things. I damn sure was not one of those people.
And
So,
great, because even the guests that were on, let's say that they have like a really high gymnastic background or cheerleading background or whatever, they still say like, oh, but I really struggle. Most of them, like if they come from a gymnastic background, they still kind of struggle with strength, not because they're not strong enough, just because pull like certain moves, you're in such an awkward position to try to like hold on to body weight or anything like that, that even if they were strong, they still kind of struggle to get certain moves that just require just such a weird angle for them to apply that strength, if that makes any sense. And
it does, because pole dancing is vertical gymnastics,
yeah,
and it is very, very very difficult to do. And you might have strength in one particular area, but that does not mean that it translates to another type of movement. It depends on which muscles that you're moving. Like I can, at my peak, I could deadlift 300 pounds off the floor.
Wow.
So that's exciting, right? That's a lot of weight. That's 200 pounds. That's like a baby elephant. But if you told me to do a push up, just not 12 push-ups, just one push-up, I'd be like, "Ooh, I don't know about that." So, um so absolutely things change, and your strength is relative to what movements you're practicing. And also, pole has a lot of movements that are new to the body, and they're not necessarily something that you do all the time. So your muscles are constantly having to figure out, what the hell do I do in this position? This is new. We've never been in this position. We don't know how to react. And it's up to you to teach and nurture your muscles how to react when they're in a particular position. And that's one of the reasons why pole is so damn hard. But it's also the reason why it's so gratifying when you actually figure out how to coach your body into the right position where you feel strong and confident that you're not going to face plant on the floor. That's absolutely amazing.
And you know something I really tried to tell my students as well, and an instructor told me this when I started, because I really struggled when I started. I was 6 months pregnant, and then I didn't come from a fitness background. Like, I didn't like fitness. I was by no means healthy in any sense of the word. So really struggled. But one of my instructor was really, really good at being like, not because you struggle with one thing in pole, that you're gonna struggle with everything. We all naturally have things that work better with our body, and it's gonna be about you finding that and really tapping into that. You can still be working on everything else, but know that you're going to be really good at a certain aspect. You just haven't found that aspect yet. And then with time, I now know that I'm a bracket grip girly. That's not how I started, but that's now what I prefer. And I feel like I really fell in love with pole that day because I'm like, okay, we're all going to be really good and we all love different things about pole. It's just such a wide range of things you could be doing and working on. And I kind of really enjoyed asking this to people. What do you feel naturally agreed with your body?
I would say spins naturally agree with my body. Most I should say upright spins too, because I'm sure somebody's invented some flying backwards upside down wombat by this time. But I would say I naturally gravitated towards spins, and also I would say that I gravitated towards dance.
Okay.
Anything with twerking in it, I could do, I could figure it out. That came natural to me. Um, and but it was the strength piece. It was the pull-ups, the climbing, the inverts, the tricks, the inverted tricks. None of that was easy for me, and it still is not easy for me.
And I like that you say that because a lot of the times I feel like a lot of people who pull, I will include myself once again in that, we follow these crazy, amazing people that just do things that I'm like, I don't think my body can bend that way. I don't think I can hold on with just one toenail to the pole without dying. And we forget that even those people struggle at something, right? And even those people like have to work on things that just are giving them a harder time. And that's something I really enjoy from this podcast. And I'll ask you this question at the end, so please don't answer it now. But I asked the guest, like, what is your nemesis move? And then the different answers I get shock me. Because some people, right, they do like the craziest thing and they're like, oh, that Cupid move. I just can't do it for the life of me. And I'm like, really? I didn't think that that was going to be the move. And I love that we share that. Where or what do you feel you had to put more time on to try to kind of not level the playing field, but not like get amazing at one thing and then kind of let that other thing fall behind. You know what I mean?
Would say I really had to put my effort into strength training. Um, and this was, and listen, everybody does, but this was doubly true for me because I'm in a plus size body. So I'm carrying a lot more weight than the average pole celebrity out there. And so that requires a lot more strength because my muscles have to move and manipulate a whole lot more weight than a lot of other dancers out there. And it's not that they're incapable of doing so, it's just that it takes more time because I've got to build up even more strength than the average dancer. So the strength training piece of it is really where I had to have a lot of patience, like a lot of patience.
Were you in a plus size body when you started your pole journey?
Absolutely. I've been in a plus size body probably since puberty. So this body is not new to me. I have pulled at everything. This is just for context for people. So when I say plus size, I've pole danced everywhere between 200 pounds and 275 pounds. And so I have run the gamut, and I can say with my chest that pole is easier when you're in a smaller body. When you're in a larger body, it is still absolutely doable, but it is just going to take you, like, if it takes my slender counterparts, let's say 3 or 4 months to nail a particular trick, it might take me 2 years to get the same thing. So it's just on a much longer scale. And, but it is the gratification that comes with getting those tricks is absolutely insane and it's amazing.
Can I ask you, for our listeners and our viewers that like are tuning in and are in a plus size body and maybe are feeling discouraged when they go to a class and they see like other student just kind of surpass them, do you have word of advice for them on like to just anything you would want them to hear?
Size and other non-traditional athletes out there, I want them to know, number one, they're not alone. You might be the only one physically in your class that looks or moves like you, but I guarantee there is a whole squad of people that exist, and they exist for you, and they exist, they're just like you. They might not have the exact same body composition that you have, but in terms of the challenges and the feeling, the loneliness that comes with it, I promise you, you are not alone at all. I also want to tell everybody in a non-traditional body that it is going to take a lot of time to catch up to your slender, able-bodied counterparts. And that's not a diss on your character. It doesn't mean that you are any less of an athlete. It doesn't mean that you don't count. It just means that you're going to have a different path to glory, and your glory is going to look different than everybody else's. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
I love that. I also wanted to ask you because you use and on your social media as well, because I do follow you on my personal poll account as well, right? One, I find you really, really inspiring, and I hope that our viewers and our listener already do follow you. And I hope that if they don't, they will after this. You use the term non-traditional athlete a lot. Can you define for us a little bit what you would consider a non-traditional athlete?
Sure. So when I think of non-traditional athlete, I think of everybody who would be considered an underdog in sports. So people, we're talking about people of color. We're talking about people who are not, 6 foot and have 4% body fat and are 22 years old and have access to money and access to the perfect gym schedule and have the time to invest in it. So we're talking about people who are plus size, LGBTQIA plus, people with disabilities, adaptive athletes, those with special needs, those in recovery, those are recovering from addiction or recovering from depression and working through anxiety. So all the underdogs that you could think, something that that most people would deem a deterrent from athletic success. I don't see it as a deterrent. I just see it as we've got to pivot and we've got to reinvent success for you and put it in the context of your body and define what that means from there.
Thank you. That was amazing. I just have like so many questions that come up with like kind of all of that. I guess I'll try to like ask one at a time, or we're just gonna get whiplash from like the 101 questions I have. Okay. One, do you feel that from the start in your pole journey, you wanted to represent, advocate, and kind of show and support non-traditional athletes? Or has this been kind of a mission for you in the last couple of years?
When I started pole and when I started my gym revolution as an adult, I did not seek out one, I didn't know it was going to be my career. And two, I didn't seek out to represent non-traditional athletes. I started working out in the first place, honestly, to lose weight. That was my initial motivation, but it's not what kept me working out. What kept me working out were the friends that I made at the gym. It was me having fun while I was at the gym and doing classes that I really enjoyed. So that's what kept me around. And once I got into working out as a career as a fitness professional, I did not seek out to represent all plus size or non-traditional athletes. But what had happened was we naturally gravitated towards each other. People, I reflected something about people and they could see themselves in me for various reasons. Sometimes it was size, sometimes it was attitude, sometimes it was abilities, sometimes it was because I'm black. There's a whole host of reasons why people were like, I can relate to this woman. So, and once I realized those are the people that were giving me work, they were the people that were hiring me, they were the people that were paying attention to me and glorifying me and making me feel like a badass, then guess what? That's that's what we rock and rolled with. So I figured, well, this is going to be my target market because this is who I am and this is who is supporting me as a business.
Yeah. Do you feel, I'm not even sure how I want to phrase this or like what I'm even trying to feel. Do you feel like because that community really supported you, that you found your voice into that? Or were you somebody who was already confident in having a voice and then you kind of found a community that really amplified it?
I definitely wasn't confident in my voice. I didn't know what my voice was when I started. I didn't know who my voice was for. But I did my best to pay attention to who was listening.
Okay.
And I built my brand, the brand of Roz the Diva. I built that brand around who was listening and who was paying attention.
Can I ask you then, when did your brand start, right? Because we touched up a little bit on how you started, how you found out pole. But okay, great. So you started pole. and you already had the fitness background, did you kind of keep evolving in the fitness background and kind of pull at the same time? Or you really went full throttle with pull and then kind of picked up the fitness back up? And then when did you decide that you were going to become a brand and then start the branding process of all of that?
So I don't think there's an official start date that I had to the brand. If anything, if I had to quantify a start date, I would say it was March of 2014. I had just gotten fired from my job, and that's when I decided to pursue fitness as a full-time career. So if anything, that's when, and I was already teaching by that time. I was teaching pole, um, and I dreamed about teaching other kinds of fitness as well, but I just didn't see a pathway to success. I couldn't envision it yet. But then, a funny thing happens when your back is against the wall and you're broke as shit and you don't have any other options but to find some money somewhere. Then guess what? You're going to build a business. You're going to build a brand. You're going to figure out a way to pay your rent. And so that's where a lot of my business came from. That's where a lot of Roz the Diva came from. It was out of necessity. It was, I have to survive in New York City, which is not an easy thing when you're broke. I mean, it's not easy anywhere, but New York City is an expensive ass place to be broke. So, so you've got to figure it out. You've got to figure it out, and that's what I did. Is I figured out how to build a brand. I didn't set off and say, okay, here is now my brand, here we go, let's do it. The process was pretty organic as it came along, so I tried to pay attention to people's comments, to their feedback, pay attention to, brands. I feel like start off your family or your really close friends. They're the first people to acknowledge what's going on, which is great. You need them. It was my mom and like my best friend were the first people to like every post that I did. And then that eventually grows to like your extended family and your extended friend group. And then once you've got friends and family down, that's when the first thing that's really exciting is when strangers start paying attention to your brand because they don't owe you anything and you don't know them and they don't know you, but the little bit that they do know about you, they're enjoying thus far. And dare I say that they're enjoying and they're paying for your brand in some capacity. So the brand grew organically, but I also just worked really hard at putting myself out there because I feel that a brand or a business, it can't grow if people don't know you exist. So you've got to be, I'm constantly trying to put myself out there through videos, through newsletters, through my email list, through social media, through in-person events, all of those things. I'm trying to put myself out there so people can find me and hopefully love me enough to hire me.
Do you have a business background or did you learn as you went? Because I feel what you're saying is amazing advice. A lot of people, at least in the pole community, I feel open their studio or they start a brand out of passion. But
Hmm.
then a lot of people struggle to understand that, yeah, it's great that you have a passion, but at the end of the day, you're a business, right? Like you got to survive. And I feel you're giving amazing like business advice. Do you have a business background? Is this things you've learned with experience?
So I went to business school. I'm the class of 2006 from GW, the George Washington University School of Business. Woo woo. But just because I went to business school undergrad I don't know if I would say that makes me have a business background necessarily. Because in terms of my jobs before fitness, I was working at a lot of nonprofits.
Okay.
And um, nonprofits are very mission driven. And so I spent, and I guess they're also like passion driven as well. So one thing that I learned though is that nonprofits are the same as for profits. They just file their taxes differently.
Okay.
And I that's the hill that I'm willing to die on, is that there's not a big huge difference between for and nonprofits. But that's I digress. Coming back to your original question though, so I have a very basic business education in marketing, in economics, in finance. So I did enter the space with a little bit of awareness of what of different business functions and what a business should look like. But I would say that was only college accounted for probably 25% of my business knowledge, but about 75% of my business knowledge came from being in business and just trial and error. And you try and you figure it out and you make mistakes and you write those mistakes and you make more mistakes and you write those mistakes. So a lot of the education is on site.
And then, like, you've been in the game now for a while, right? Did you, and listen, I maybe I'm wrong. I have a feeling that the name on your birth certificate is not Roz the Diva. Where did that come from? Where in your journey did you come up with that as your brand? And why and how did you slowly, I guess, like, how did you decide what was gonna be the brand, like what you're known for? Did that just kind of slowly as well, organically, or at some point you're like, you know what, I don't think I'm gonna operate under my own name. I'm gonna create kind of a separate entity or a persona or some sort of a decision that was to brand as Roz the Diva.
So the specific phrase Roz the Diva, that came about, I forgot what year exactly. I want to say it came out in 2010, I
Okay.
think. So, wow, 15 years ago. So it's been roughly about 15 years since Roz the Diva was born. And it was born because I was in a pole competition, a local competition, and some people, it was the second iteration of that competition. The first time I competed, I came in second place. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, who is this girl? Like, nobody knew who I was. I barely knew who I was, but I came in second place. And so the second time that I competed, we were, and one of the producers for the show was just like, going through the attendance roster and called my name and said, Roz. And I said, hey, I'm here. And one of my friends, Rika was like, oh, Roz is your name. We didn't know what your name was, so we just called you Miss Diva. And so that's how Roz the Diva was born. It was born because people didn't know about the Roz part because this was still very, very early in my pole career. And I didn't have and I actually wasn't even teaching yet. So I was still just a student and like half-baked performer. Um, and so that's how Roz the Diva was born. And then I stayed with that nickname until this day. And now Roz the Diva is basically what I call myself for all of my business ventures. I mean, my name is Roz Mays. I like my name. I'm fine with Roz Mays too, but Roz the Diva just has a nice little zing to it.
You remember Roz the Diva. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a really nice branding to it. Okay, I have a question as well because I had another guest on and I asked her that too. And this is where like I have a particularly like passion for it. I started pole in a bigger body and thankfully it wasn't that many years ago, right? So when I went on social media, like everything was already on Instagram. I just still felt like I really didn't find a lot of people that look like me back then, and I had a really tough time kind of looking for anything or anyone that would like look like me and know how to work with a body like I used to be in. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago. How was it back then? And on top of that, I want to add to that question too. You created your brand, so you're now putting yourself out there, right? And on Instagram or Facebook or however you started. How did you feel like people took it? Did you feel the community supported you? Do you feel there was other people that looked a little bit like you, or were you kind of a pioneer and you're like, I'm going to put myself out there so other people can have someone to look up to?
I definitely don't think I was a pioneer. I think I'm among the loudest of the plus size pollers and the boldest in my words of plus size pollers, but I certainly was not the pioneer. I think there was Lulu. I think Helms is her last name. Lulu Helms. She was a plus size dancer. Curvy Diva also has been in the game for a really, really long time, just as long as I have. And so when you seek these people out, you can find them. There's not a ton of us. Well, there wasn't. Now there's a lot. There weren't a lot of us back then, that way back in the like 2007, 2008 when I started. But certainly the people that I saw, I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this shit too. So I wasn't the first, but I would say that I'm one of the loudest. And that's how I've kind of gained my notoriety, is because I don't shut up.
I love that. I love that for a podcast. It makes my time really nice. You're like answering all the great questions. I kind of want to touch up a little bit more on the community aspect of it. And maybe this is me being a little bit naive. I do feel like the whole community as a general tries as much as possible to be inclusive and keep on educating themselves on different subject. Do you feel like the pole community is inclusive enough? Do you feel there's things that we could be doing better? And do you feel we leave, because a lot of marginalized groups are part of the pole community. Do you feel we leave them enough space to express themselves?
I would say pole is absolutely getting more inclusive as time goes on, but there's still a lot that we need to work on as a whole. I think, and this is my critique of the fitness industry, period, and not just pole dancing. I think in regards to the fitness industry, um, the fitness industry is so obsessed with weight loss and so obsessed with having the perfect body, and that's the reason why people go to the gym. When slow down, homie, that's just one reason why people work out and go to the gym. And I think the same could be said for pole. Although pole was not born out of the obsession with weight loss, the way that other sports and other forms of fitness were, I do think pole dancing favors the slim and the slender. And the way we teach favors smaller bodies. And I don't think people do that. I think most people do that by accident. And they don't even realize that they are favoring small, petite bodies over plus size or taller or larger or disabled bodies. And I feel like um I feel like every day it's becoming better, but there's still a lot of work to do. And in terms of inclusivity, besides being inclusive of different kinds of physical bodies, I think, well, we've got a long way to go to include sex workers and dancers and strippers, and making sure that they feel just as welcome in the sport of pole as they do in whatever that they're in sex work and in whatever that they're doing. Because I think pole in general is still very whorephobic, and pole in general tries to distance itself from the very people who created our sport. So I think there is definitely a disconnect there that needs to be healed in some capacity.
I would 100% agree. I'm not sure about you because you live in New York, right?
I sure do.
Okay, and I live in like a small town in Canada, a pretty conservative town, but I've had multiple guests at this point on the, and I feel like everybody's kind of saying the same thing lately that there is a push to acknowledge more the roots of pole, to be more inclusive as sex worker. Do you feel the same conversation is going on a little bit in like the New York pole scene?
Well, I think it's very much studio by studio. I think people, I think in general, people say that they're inclusive and they think that they're being inclusive, but their practices say otherwise. And I believe, I want to believe the best in people and the best for people. So I really feel that people aren't going out of their way to well, some people are, but I feel like most people are not necessarily going out of their way to exclude sex workers and and professional dancers. But they don't realize that their practices are exclusive. And that's where we need as much education as possible. We need as much diversity, but not just having a diverse community, but diverse leadership in particular, because everything starts from the top. You can tell when a studio has got diverse leadership, diversity of thought, and diversity of body. You can tell when they've got that based on their student body. When the student body is diverse, it is a reflection of the leadership. So, I would like to see a greater diversity in leadership of pole. And I think that that's the one time that trickle down economics actually works.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm like looking at the time and I'm like, oh my God, there's still so much I want to touch up on. I want to touch up on a little bit more if, because as we've been saying, you have your own brand and you've been in the business and the game a long time. What are the services that you offer that my viewers, my listeners can expect from you? Yeah, let's touch up on that and then I'll have a couple extra questions.
Sure. So first and foremost, I teach pole dancing workshops, and I teach a variety of workshops. They're all beginner friendly. And when I say that, I truly mean it. I mean, you could walk in off the street, never having pole danced a day in your life, and you could still participate in my workshops. Now, of course, you're going to get more out of it if you do have some experience under your belt in regards to pole dancing. But I want to, but my goal is to be as accessible and inclusive as possible. So even if you've only taken a handful of classes, you are still absolutely welcome to any of my workshops. Number one. Number two, if you can't make a workshop, no problem. I teach pole over Zoom, and I also do regular personal training. So even if you're really into pole, but you need to do some cross training, you want to do something off the pole, I got you. That is not a problem at all. We can do stuff over Zoom, or if you're local to the New York City area, then we can rock in person as well. And you can do all of the stalking of my services at rozthediva.com.
Want to ask you a question because I own a pole studio, so once in a while, right, there's guest workshops that are going on and we have different people. You're Once again, I'm sorry, I'm naive. You're the only one that I've found that specifically caters to beginner. I feel like a lot of guest instructor do intermediate and advanced, which is great. But then I feel because the instructors I have here that do workshop like that travel and come here, like, yeah, their workshops are intermediate and advanced. Then I feel like some of my beginner students are a little discouraged and they're like, well, there's not really anyone out there for us. Can you tell me why you chose to kind of niche in the beginner market?
Sure. So I really love the underdogs. I love the beginners because I remember vividly what it's like to be the person that is trying to catch up to everyone else. I remember, because in a lot of ways, I'm still that athlete. And I remember the loneliness that comes with that. And I am hell bent on making sure that nobody feels as lonely as I used to feel. And a lot of my underdog clients, they're considered beginners because they are frustrated or they feel stuck at a particular point in their athletic career. And most of the time that the point that they feel stuck or feel stagnant is what we would describe as a beginner level. So I want to make sure that those people understand that they are seen and that they are valued. Because pole, one of the issues that I have with pole is that everybody is obsessed with getting the next trick. And it's like, how complicated of a dancer can I be? And if you can't get a certain amount of tricks or particular tricks, then you're not a real pole dancer. But that's just not true. And somebody has got to be there to remind those students that that isn't true and to let them know, I see your value right here, right now. And so my workshops are built on accessibility because I want my students, even if you're a student of mine only for an hour, I want you to feel like you belong here and you deserve greatness.
I feel like you're healing my inner child, and I I just wish, right, when I started, and I would agree because yeah, I started in a very different body than I'm at now, and I remember like the loneliness that I felt in the classes. And at the studio I started, there wasn't really any instructors that looked how I looked when I started. There wasn't really any other students either. And then seeing everybody kind of move on, and then like the instructor comes to your pole, right? And I get it, like, but they're like, just keep working on it. And I'm like, well, it's not even just keep working on it. There's certain moves that I can't even reach to the pole. Like, right? Like my body's not letting me like that range of motion. Like, can you not give me
Mm-hmm.
something else? And I feel like with time, there is more and more out there for instructors to educate themselves on, like, okay, maybe this isn't attainable, but this grip would be easier, or this like regression or progressions, right? And I think there's more out there. And I think there's going to be more and more as more people represent the community, and as there's just more ways for instructors to get that knowledge. And I love that you're out there really sharing the knowledge. You have a voice that people seem to want to hear, right? Because you have quite a large following on social media. So I'm like, n- people resonate with what you're saying, and that's allowing you to have that platform and keep on that, having that conversation going. And for that, I'm really thankful.
Well, I am super thankful for people like you because Roz the Diva is not a one-way brand. If I didn't have people that were willing to pay attention to what I had to say and that didn't want to hear me, hear what I have to say, and did not want to take my classes, I would be living in my parents' basement. And I really don't want to live in my parents' basement. I love my parents to death, but I don't want to be living in their basement. So this is absolutely Team Diva goes both ways. I'm not, I am nothing without my loyal followers and people who just simply listen to what I have to say.
Thank you. I have a question that I've been really enjoying asking guests that have kind of a more business, right? Because some of the guests we have on are just amazing artists and they have a social media following, and that's how I find everybody, obviously. But other people really branded themselves or created a brand. In your wildest dreams, if there's no boundaries, okay, what would you want to see your brand become or your business become? And for you yourself as a polar, what would you want?
So I would love to see my business evolve into a teacher education focused business. So I love teaching students, but I feel that I can have a greater reach with the more instructors that I work with. So that's what I'm trying to push towards. I also want Roz the Diva to become an internationally recognized public speaker. I want to go to different fitness conferences and wellness conferences, and I want to preach the gospel of inclusivity. And I want to teach other instructors and other fitness professionals this is how you can be more inclusive in your business practices. So I'm working towards that. It is, people know me. I'm well known within pole, which is wonderful, and I'm so thankful for that. And now I'm trying to do that in the greater fitness community. And it's hard because I'm spoiled in pole. In our little pole bubble, I got all these friends, all these people know me. I don't have to introduce myself. But in the grander scheme of fitness, shit, now I gotta introduce myself again. I have to build up not a new brand, but I have to introduce my brand. I have to hustle like I haven't hustled in a couple years. And I'm thankful to do that and to have the ability to do that. So I want to, but I also need to acknowledge that it is a new kind of hustle. And hopefully a year from now, I'll do less hustling and more scheduling of events.
I hope that for you too. That sounds amazing.
Thank you.
And then if I ask you kind of on a personal poll, like yourself as a student, what would you want to happen? Do you like, are you training something particularly? Are you just kind of wanting to be more consistent? Like, if anything, what would you want for your personal goals as a student?
I'm not sure because as a pulse, I really have not been a pulse student in years. And I've taken the thirst that I've had for being a pole student and applied that to strength training. So I would say my personal goals overall, it's not necessarily to be the most trick gravity defying pole athlete, but rather I want to be strong. I want to be the base of the pyramid. I want to lift other people up physically and metaphorically, but physically, I want to haul their asses into the air and I want to make sure that they can do all kinds of wild ass tricks and I will be the base that they work from. So that's what I think of when I think of that question.
But I'm not going to keep you here today forever. I want to ask you one last question and then we'll go to the last segment that we'll call the last grip.
Mm-hmm.
Such a random question, and you're the first person I'm going to ask this to on this podcast. Because you touched up a little bit on it, being like, oh, everybody in the pole world knows me. And then, like, it's something different when I go, like, in the grander fitness industry. Does it hit you sometimes that you're a pole celebrity?
Think it hits me when people kind of sheepishly come up to me and they're like, "Hi, I just want you to know that I saw you on Instagram and I really like you and I think you're pretty cool. And is it okay if we take a picture?" And I'm so, so thankful for those people. They're the people that keep my career going.
Mhm.
They're the people that make sure that I can pay my rent. So again, I don't have to live in my parents' basement. And they're the people that I appreciate the most. So I've got to give it up to the people. Like it kind of hits me then when people are like, I want to take a picture with you. And I'm like, why? And I don't say that out loud, but that's how in my mind I'm like, the hell do you want to take a picture with me for? Like, I've got cookies in my mouth. I've probably got crust in my eye or whatever. But people still see you as something special and something worthy. And I definitely have a tough time seeing my own worth. So when other people see the value in me and see my worth when I can't see it for myself, it's incredibly validating and it's important, and I'm thankful for it.
Thank you. That was a great response. I just wonder all the time, right? Because I get to meet fantastic people on the podcast, and in my mind, every time, like, I'm like, okay, don't fangirl, just act cool. Like, they're like, so in my mind, I get to like talk with amazing people, and I'm just like fangirling because I love like everybody on the podcast, right? And I get to like just talk, and everybody shares like different experience and stuff, and I guess I had Body by Fran on for season one, and then she touched up on just kind of one time she was at like PolCon, and somebody was like, "Oh my God, it's a celebrity," and she's like, "Oh my God, who?" And they're like, "You, can I get a picture?" And then I watched you guys just walking around, and like in the pole world, you're such a big name that I'm just like, it must be kind of trippy a little bit.
It is definitely a little trippy because it's the thing where I'm kind of a big deal in pole, but outside pole, I'm very much just Roz. And the IRS doesn't give a shit about me in pole. They just want their taxes. So when the IRS thinks I'm a big deal, then I'll be a really big deal. But right now, I'm still just mostly Roz.
Hey, for all of us, you're Roz the Diva, and that's pretty fucking amazing.
Thank you.
All right, I am not going to keep you here all day. We'll go to the last segment that we call the last grip. These are easy, light-hearted questions, just kind of a like speed round. You can give us as much or as little details as you want. Are you ready, Ross, for the last grip?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, coffee or tea?
Vodka.
That's my favorite answer yet. Song to dance to right now.
Anything by Beyonce.
I'm teaching a choreo class tonight and we're doing Beyonce and I'm pumped.
Oh.
Most love pole outfit or accessory?
Um, I don't have any hair right now, but when I did have hair and I had it in long braids, it was really fun to whip it around. So that
Ooh.
was a great accessory.
Heels or barefoot?
Barefoot.
One word to describe your relationship with pole.
Long.
Spin or static?
I would say for performances, static, but for photo shoots, spin.
Okay. Choreo or tricks?
Choreo.
Practice or evening practice?
Evening for sure.
Love or hate of conditioning?
Ugh. Let's go with hate.
All right. Can you tell us two or three people that we should be following, that we should be made aware of, or two or three people that you really enjoy following?
Yeah, so I think following Black Girls Poll is really fantastic. I've been an ambassador for them for a couple, well, since the inception of Black Girls Poll. So you can follow them on Instagram or Delija Franklin, who is the founder of Black Girls Poll. Um, those are two excellent accounts. I also think, oh my gosh. You know what? I'm probably just going to pause at those two right now because the others I could go on forever talking about different accounts to follow, but those are two of my favorites.
I feel like a lot of guests, I ask that, right? And we all follow so many other, like, that people are like, what, only two or three? And I'm like, yeah, because if I just ask, like, oh, can you just give us names? People would go on for half an hour. There's just so many good people out there to follow. So, yeah, we will keep it at those two. Can you tell me your nemesis move or family of moves that you just ate?
Jesus. At this point right now, anything where I have to leave the ground and get higher than standing, I'm like, I'm not doing that shit. But when I was doing more tricks and I was more active as a pole student, choppers, no question, hands down. I've choppered like 3 times successfully in my whole life.
And then if we go on the positive of it, what would be your favorite move or your favorite family of move?
I still like dip turns. I teach dip turns in an intro class and I still like them. They're because they can lead to so many different things. You can do pirouettes before and or after. You can take a dip turn into some climbs. There's so much you can do with it. So I'm a big dip turn fan.
I love them too. All right, that is it for today. Thank you so much for being on. This was such a nice conversation, and I will put all your info in the caption so our viewers and our followers can give you a follow. And I hope everybody liked it as much as I did.
Fabulous. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Between the Poles. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Stay connected with us on social media, and we'll see you next time right here, Between the Poles.